Hey guys, what we've got today is a 2005 Yamaha WaveRunner, and it's a VX110 Deluxe, but it will not start. All it does is click when you hit the starter. So I am going to change the starter relay. The starter relay is what tells the starter to actually turn over and start the motor. So let me get this seat off and I'll show you what we got. Okay, so on this one, the starter relay is inside the electrical box. You got the battery down here, and battery leads go up and go into the side of the electrical box right here. Okay, so when you press the starter, you can, if you put your hand on it right here, you can feel the box clicking. So if you don't have a multimeter or any way to ohm it out or scope it out, if you go right inside where these battery cables go in and just feel this box, you'll be able to feel it clicking. The signal comes out of this box and then goes down to the starter, tells the starter to turn and start the motor. So what we've got to do is there's two 13mm bolts. There's one right here, and then there's one right down there. We got to pull those two 13mm bolts out and then pull this whole box out and get it up higher, because what we have to do is we have to get on the back side of it over here. And there's a plate over here that's held on, a cover that's held on by 10mm bolts, and we need to take those out to access starter relay. So let me pull this off real quick and we'll go from there. Okay, so the first thing I did was disconnect the battery. The last thing you want is playing with an electrical box with live voltage on it. And then came over here and I removed two 13mm nuts and two washers. And remember guys, everything on this ski is metric because it's made in Japan. And it's not made in Japan, it's assembled in Kennesaw, Georgia, but it's a Japanese product. So everything's gonna be metric. So I'm gonna pull this box out. You can see the 10mm studs that need to come out. So it looks like there's 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll pull those off, pull that back cover out, and the starter relay will be underneath there. Okay, so I've got the 6 10mm bolts out. Take this cover off. And what we got here is the battery terminals are coming in. They're going into the control relay, the starter relay right here. And you see they're just stuck on to those two little tabs right there by rubber ears. And then down in the very bottom, there's just push pin connectors. So what we'll do is we'll disconnect the positive and the negative, disconnect the two push pins, and then pull the relay out and put a new one in. Show you a little bit better here. You can see this is all the relay is. Two terminals just screw in right there. Just sits down on those two tabs right there, rubber tabs, and then the push pin connectors. So pretty easy fix. Let's get this off. Okay, so I've got the 10mm bolts out of these right here, and we're just gonna separate those out. There's also a pink lead underneath the terminal on the left side, so you need to make sure you get that back. And then there's black rubber boots. Those black rubber boots just pull back, exposing the 10mm bolts. And all it is just little 1/2 inch long 10mm bolts. So now that that's free, you can see the module, the relay underneath, and then the push pin connectors right there. So we're just going to pull that out, pull those push pin connectors, and put the new one in. So the new relay's in, got the boots back up. Just pay special attention to your cables. Your cables are marked positive and negative, and just make sure you get them back on the same side they came off of, and make sure you get your jumper back onto the correct terminal, and make sure you get your push pins back seated in their little housings down there in the bottom. So all we need to do now is put our cover back on, our back cover, put our 10mm bolts back in, and then screw it back to the sidewall. And we should be good to go after we connect the battery. So everything's buttoned up and back together. I didn't unplug anything, but check all your plugs since you're wiggling that thing around, make sure nothing came out. And then lastly, hook up your battery and then do a tool inventory. Make sure you have all of your tools so that nothing is down in your engine. Last thing you want is something to foul up your drive shaft down in there and you break out in the water. So the last thing to do is to hit start and see if it works. Okay, so that was pretty easy. Took about 30 minutes. Couple of bolts, couple of nuts, back on the water. We're ready to go. Put the seat on, let's go ride. Have a good one.